Section of public comment. If there is anyone who would like to address this committee, could you please step forward to the microphone, state your name and your address, and try to keep your comments to 2 minutes or under. Is there a comment? Yes, we have 2 hands up over there from the same person.
There's not had 2 hands. Hi, I'm Alex Coyer, 2 Lancey Court. Welcome, Sean. Good luck.
Thank you.
And for the record, I love the new spot too, because I live right down the street. So believe it or not, I'm not here to talk about late start times. I know,
Wow.
something much more benign and stupid if you ask my children. But I would love to try to see how we could get a branding. I have a lot of corporate pride, as do, I'm sure everybody here. And people who stand on the sidelines with me at the sporting events know it drives me crazy when they call the team Port, they call our team red or yellow. I have a deep-seated love for crimson and old gold and clipper ships and the whole thing. And so I would love if there could be some kind of trademark, and that all the sports teams all have to say the same thing. They don't say Port, they don't say Bad Dogs, they don't say whatever. They all say Newburyport. They all have the same colors, it's Pantone, whatever, and that we have, a real pride about that is uniform, no pun intended, across at least the high school, and if not, throughout the youth sports as well. So I have emailed the athletic director, and he never replied to me, so I've come to the next powerful Oz. And I don't, in terms of conversation at your level, and, obviously I come before you to say that I am more than willing to help in that endeavor, and, but I would love to try to start that conversation at some point. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Mr. Decanter.
May I just reply briefly to that comment? We do have the colors, the official Pantones, and official names for the colors as part of our student handbook at the high school, which is actually part of our school committee policy, so it does exist. Now we just need to find a way to make it more actionable and a way to make sure that we live by it.
So I'm going to send that to the policy committee then. Would you put that on your agenda, Mr. Decanter, and get back to us?
Sure.
Thank you. Mr. Hockheiser?
Point of curiosity, anybody know why we're crimson and gold?
I'm going to leave that to Mr. Cole.
What's that?
Old gold.
Sorry. Crimson and old gold?
Mr. Cole, I'm going to leave that with you.
I can't fully answer that, but I can.
Oh, come on, Steve. Pick something up. It'd be great.
What's that?
Well, Mr. Parent's here too. Make something up.
I mean, I don't know exactly if it's why, but I know that Mount Rural, the site of Newburyport High School, was property that's owned by Harvard University. Our alma mater is also borrowed from Harvardiana, so the crimson and old gold may, have parallels to Harvard's colors. So that's the only thing I could tell you.
I love it when I learn something new every day. Thank you.
Thanks, Steve.
Any other public comment? Yes.
I am here to just say brief frustration about the article that was in the Daily News about the Bresnahan teachers and the start school later. I've been stopped the past 48 hours by several people in our community who said, wait a minute, I thought the school committee voted that this was happening in 1819. Now all of a sudden it looks like this isn't happening because the teachers at the Bresnahan think it's too early for kids to go to school. And I guess what I'm here to say is please do what's best for the interest of all students. And we've talked about this over and over again. It's a give and take on everybody's part. We presented it to you. We voted last spring. Just, I guess, please keep that in mind. It's very frustrating. Thank you so much.
I'd like to comment on that if I could. As you know, every meeting that the school district and the school committee have are open meetings, so anyone can attend any meeting. However, I feel that the article in the paper was premature and unfortunate. because we are waiting until October 20th to receive presentations from all of our schools. So I don't think we did a service to the teachers at the Bresnahan. I was a little upset about the follow-through on Facebook as well, and I don't think it was a correct forum. I'm not speaking as the chair of the school committee. I'm speaking of honesty and respect. Mr. Menon?
Yeah, I would just also add a comment that I was disappointed that the comments in the article and the article itself didn't reflect the task that we asked the groups at each of the schools to undertake, which is to identify the challenges and come up with solutions for those challenges. That is the mission of each of those groups, and I don't think the article reflected that, and I was disappointed in that.
It seems like there should be some repercussion of people that aren't even at the meeting that are then writing those articles. I don't know if that's true, or, I mean, if they're not representing it fairly, but I
It's
appreciate
open
your-
meeting law, though,
Yeah.
so
I appreciate that. Okay, thank you.
thank you. Any other comment at this point? Moving ahead, consent agenda, please, Mr. Menon.
Yeah, we have a number of warrants, it looks like 4. I move that the following named bills of the Newburyport Public Schools amounting the aggregate of $46,313.20 be approved for the city auditor to make payment and deduct the funds from the school's account. And I understand there may be a conflict with this. I would assume it's the mayor.
Thank you.
Give this on the outside. Give this on the outside.
He sits in the middle.
Yeah. So otherwise we'll be passing back and forth.
Yeah,
all
yeah.
day long.
Could I hear a second, please?
Second.
Discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Present.
Motion carries unanimously.
I move that the following named bills of the Newburyport Public Schools amounting in the aggregate of $3,000 be approved and forwarded to the city auditor for payment. There are no conflicts.
Second.
Discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Sean, I'm going to suggest you just hold on to them till you get all of them and then pass them
Okay.
out in a pile.
So I see we're striving for better efficiency.
Well, somewhat. It's disconcerting.
Okay, no.
I'm trying to pay attention.
I move that the following named bills of the Newburyport Public Schools amounting in the aggregate of $19,613.17 be approved and forwarded to the city auditor for payment. There are no conflicts.
Second.
Discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously again.
And the big one, I move that the following named bills of the Newburyport Public Schools amounting in the aggregate of $440,038.60 be approved and forwarded to the city auditor for payment. There were no conflicts on that as well.
Second.
Discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Is that it? Was that all 4?
That's all 4.
Thank you. I'd like to turn the committee's attention now to the Newburyport School Committee Business Meeting minutes for Monday, September 18th, 2017. Could I hear a motion, please?
So moved.
Second.
Second, discussion, comment, corrections? Mayor?
During the conversation of the revolving funds for the student activity accounts, at the end of the list, Mrs. Kennedy, where you list the comments and you have Mayor Holliday asked, are we supposed to set a minimum balance? That's supposed to be a maximum balance. And that the accounts, according to the regulations that were submitted to us with the list of the accounts, talked about having a yearly audit, and I know that they're fully audited by the city's contracted auditor every 3 years. But I'm not sure that we are following exactly the letter of the law, and Susan was going to reach out to legal counsel to check on that. So that should be tweaked a little bit, that line. So she spoke regarding the audit and the yearly requirement, and if we're meeting that, is what it should say. and that the superintendent will check with legal to ensure that we are following the letter of the law in approving the student revolving accounts.
Also have a suggestion?
And I just want to make sure Mrs. Kennedy's clear. I think she is.
Legal to ensure that we are following state regulation regarding approval of student activity accounts. Or something close to that.
State regulation of what?
Regarding the audit
Okay.
of student activity accounts.
Mr. Menon?
Thank you.
Yeah, in the same section in the report on student activity accounts, usually I don't have a problem expounding on something I don't know anything about. But I really don't know anything about what happens to the student councilman. I don't think it was me who said that. I would ask Mr. Cole if it was something that he said, because it seems like something he would have more knowledge about. I didn't say it. The question is, Bruce Menon explained that when a class graduates, any money left goes to the class for expenses incurred in the first reunion.
Yeah.
And I didn't know that.
I did mention that. How it
Yeah, I
goes
thought
to
you
the
did.
President, yeah. Yeah.
You asked the question, Steve answered.
Yeah. That worked out pretty well.
So is a name change there going to occur? Just a
Yes,
name
it's
change?
just a name change, yeah.
Thank you. Mayor?
And I have one more. In our conversation, again, about start school later and where the process was for there, good notes in terms of our conversation about daycare, the YW, union contracts, but the last bullet says, Mayor Holliday stated maybe we should think about a January retreat. We are having a January retreat. It's not think about that these topics of conversation should occur at the January retreat. It's a little bit different. Thank you.
Anything further? Thank you, Mrs. Kennedy. Next is I'm sorry?
Vote.
Oh, I'm sorry. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Changes carry unanimously. Next up is our high school representative report. We missed Jake the last meeting because he was in surgery. I hear you're done with sports for the year, so sorry to hear that.
Sorry, Jake.
Well, very short, not too much right now. Seniors, they're looking at scholarships already, so that's kind of scary. Nominations for freshman class officers are occurring today. Glenn was accepting all nominations. We have a homecoming. That's new. Mr. Parent approved that homecoming for October 13th, I was told today.
Oh,
So, yeah, it's going to be a dance in the cafeteria of the high school.
football game?
Yeah, after the football game, yeah.
Of course it's a football game.
Yeah, so that's gonna be nice. But besides that, the girls' soccer game has a play for here tonight. Field hockey had theirs last week. They won 4-0. That's all. Yeah, football at Triton this week.
Any questions for Jake? How are things going at the high school generally, the opening of the school and?
It's going fine. Yeah, not too much problems. There was maybe a little incident today, but that's still being figured out. And, there'll be more to come, and you'll probably hear about it through the grapevine, one way or another. Yeah.
Oh, that's intriguing.
Ooh, Stefan.
I just wanted to say I did run into a student this week, a sophomore, a young lady who took the sophomore trip to climb the mountain, and I can't remember the mountain.
Not major.
And she was raving about that experience. Have you done your day yet? You're a junior, correct?
Yeah, I didn't go because I was just to the beach and I had this.
Oh,
I stayed in
okay.
school, but I did do Mount Major last year, yes.
But I meant this year, I guess the school committee's looking for the whether the theme's working for you, for kids. And the young lady I spoke to, she was raving about the teachers being involved and doing all the activities and?
No, kids love this on the beach. They love being able to make the kites, and they love being able to hang out with their friends and just chillax. And my little sister did the Mount Major trip, and she loved it. We hiked the mountain before the first time. And overall, it's a great experience, great way to some students get out, go around, see the different parts of the community, and expand their reach a little bit, and just have a good day.
I think it's great. I think it's great. Sorry you couldn't participate, but. All right, thank you. Next up on our agenda is a financial end of the year comparison. Mr. Cole, do you want to speak about this and invite Ms. Lysick to the table with us?
Sure, I think we better get the information directly from Ms. Lysick.
Well, the only thing I was going to say is we requested this. This is a report of kind of the state of our state, where we ended up last year and where we're beginning this year. And then Ms. Lysick did a great chart for us that reflects our spending from FY13. So I appreciate all of this work that you did, but I think this will give us a really good picture of where we currently stand. And this came out of our FinCom meeting, which was all I wanted. And as you know, Mr. Cole is the chair.
So you also have in your packet a copy of the notes from the FinCom meeting as well, just so you have what was discussed. But this shows you from FY13 to FY17, the ending balances on each of the revolving accounts. At the bottom, I've estimated the ending balances for 3 years out. The biggest thing to note on the ending balances and the projection is that this next budget will be the last budget that I anticipate will have any choice money to do a fund balance. After this, it will be gone. We have no way to put money into this account any longer. This year, we'll probably get about $90,000. Next year, we'll probably be cut in half. So there's no revenue coming in. We have $1.1 million in choice right now, and we budgeted 618, almost 619,000 out of that for the fund balance to go into the salaries for this year. It's going to leave a balance of a little over $500,000 in choice. My recommendation would be to never let it go below 150,000, to always maintain that minimum balance in choice. That is the only money the school department has for emergency. There is no other fund that we can draw on, so.
And when will that be expended?
FY19 budget. That will be done.
What will that mean to us?
Well, you're losing the revenue as well as the fund budget, so the fund balance. So if you budgeted $600,000 from that this year, that's $600,000 you won't have in future years to put into the budget.
And we can't replenish it.
You can't replenish it. The only way we were able to replenish it over the last few years is by freezing the budget and leaving the balance in choice rather than using it for salaries. So we froze the budget early. We took that expense money that we saved and we used that for salaries, therefore saving the money into choice. But we've done that 2 years in a row. You can't continue to do that. One of the reasons I gave you the Finance Subcommittee summary is so that if you look at the bottom, you'll see the FY18 beginning of the year report, and you can see our current spending is at 63%. That's a little higher than we'd like it to be, but that's due to the fact that for 2 years running, we've frozen the budget, and supplies and materials were needed, as well as we did all of our encumbrances. So I don't know how advisable it would be to try to freeze the budget to save money again for a third year running. It also impacts your figures as far as per pupil expenses. You know, anything that's reported to the state, you're not spending the money that you had budgeted for. So you're skewing the totals a little bit by freezing the budget as well.
I have a question about
Mr.
choice.
Menon, sorry.
The projections that you're doing for 18, 19, and 20 with choice left in the balance, the first question that I have is that assumes that there's no increase, that we don't decide to take choice. or
Yes.
add to choice.
Yes, that's
Okay, so
correct.
that's one piece. The second is, will the level of choice that will exist in those days, if nothing changes, sustain that 150,000? Will we be getting enough choice in to keep a balance of 150?
No, the $150 would have to be money left in there and not touched
Okay.
in order to maintain that. I anticipate within 2 years, you'll probably be down to $30,000 as revenue. I mean, right now, it's 90, every year it goes down considerably. Kids graduate, so you lose the revenue.
Okay. Well, every year we need to make a choice.
And you gotta remember with choice, it's
Make a choice
not
in
a
the
big
choice
moneymaker.
account.
You make $5,000. It costs a lot more than that to educate a child. The per pupil cost is a lot higher than that. Choice has never been modified since they implemented it. It really does need to be looked at. I mean, $5,000 per child is just not sufficient any longer. It really isn't.
Yeah, it's interesting to sort of acknowledge that the cost of ice cream has increased since 1993, but not the cost of reimbursing us for educating children.
And I think the other piece that's important to remember about choice is that it's a blind admission. And that you just don't know if, you get an application for a choice, and it could be a student.
Costly.
It could be costly, someone who needs additional special education services, so.
And while we do get that money back in choice, you still have to come up with it during
Right.
that year.
Right.
I think that's an important point, because I think sometimes people in the community think choice is a panacea, and it brings us in thousands and thousands of dollars, and in essence, it doesn't. Correct?
Correct. I mean, when we opened it up originally, you got a big influx of students, so, but your reimbursements, if you get back, $500,000 from the state, the biggest piece of that is your sped portion. So if you have a special education student that costs you $200,000 in services, you get that back. So that's why the revenue looks high in choice, but it's really not. You're just putting the money back into your budget that you've spent. It's not really going towards, your choice fund.
Any other questions about that? So may I? Are you finished?
Absolutely.
Okay. Could you just talk a little bit about, in your expertise, this is our budget from 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, for 5 years. What are you noticing, if anything? I mean, I know that, you and the administration change, budget amounts based on how much we've spent the year before. Is that a fair assessment?
Yep.
So could you just talk us through some of these and the differences in the allocations? I'm looking like at kindergarten, which has gone up exponentially.
It has. Well, with kindergarten, you're limited in what you can spend it on. It's a full-day kindergarten, so therefore the money can only be spent on that program. It can't be used for anything else. In the past, we've only used it to cover half-day salaries for kindergarten teachers. My anticipation is for FY19, where we're going to be so tight, I think that we're going to have to start looking at it to supplement the budget for supplies and materials for full-day kindergarten. A little bit more of the salaries, pick up some of the IAs for full-day kindergarten, so utilize it a little bit more. So it's good that we have that, but I think that you'll see from the projections I've done that over the next 3 years, that's going to decrease significantly. As you look at preschool, you'll see that that decreased this year, because that's exactly what we started doing. We started utilizing a little bit more of the salaries in FY17 so that we could save money, again, in choice, to keep that a little higher. Athletic revolving did exceptionally well in FY17. They started a balance with 55, which is about average, but they exceeded their revenue budget by 25,000, which was one of the first for them, which was nice. Circuit breaker, now what we do with circuit breaker, rather than trying to guess an amount, we take what's come in this year, and that's what we budget for next year. We have budgeted $550,000 for a circuit breaker, and the figures that are coming in are right around there. So that's what we'll have for FY18.
So are they pretty stable year over year?
Yes, if you budget based on what's coming in,
Right.
the $658,000 that we budgeted in FY17 is within, $10,000 or whatever of what we actually received. It makes the budgeting a little bit more accurate, and you're not taking a chance on coming up short. School lunch is a concern.
It's all over the place.
Well, it's all over the place if you look, but it's money that we've given them, so.
Right.
The $9,000 that you see as an ending balance for FY17 includes $15,000 that Chartwell's has to pay us anytime we don't balance out. Their contract says they pay the first $15,000 of any shortfall. And $42,000 that we gave them, we only budgeted 30 last year. This year, we only budgeted 20. I've talked to Susan, and what I would like to see happen is that we start taking some of the expenses into the LEA. My concern with that is that I want to keep it clean so that we know what we're paying for school lunch. I don't want to commingle it with our existing school lunch line items, which is for like monitors. So what I would recommend that we do is create a line item within our budget that is for school lunch expenses, and just use that line item, so you can always tie it into the revolving. And what I anticipate using that for would be extraordinary expenses. If a refrigerator goes down, if they have to replace a boiler, whatever they have to do, they can't absorb that type of cost. The contract cost for labor is extremely high, which is why a lot of schools that have Chartwells are successful, because Chartwells owns the staffing. But we own the staffing, and we like it that way. I'm not saying I would recommend ever doing it any other way, but it is expensive. This year, we did limit vacation time and such when we negotiated the contract, so that's going to help us in the long run. The other thing that I would like to see the LEA take over is not salaries, because we shouldn't do that, but other expenses such as longevity maybe is another area we can look at, or sick leave buyback. We had somebody retire recently, it cost $9,000. Again, they can't absorb that kind of fee. So there are things that we can help by doing that way if we can budget appropriately for it and, plan ahead. I think we can make this so that it comes out successful. Either way, we're going to be feeding the money into the program, so I'd rather be able to budget for it and have it in a line item. And
separate, so you keep better track of the expense.
absolutely. Therefore, when we run a report and we want school lunch, we always tag in that LEA code with it to get an accurate figure.
Yep.
We'll know more as the year progresses. Like I said, we only budgeted $20,000, so they are going to start a breakfast program at the Bresnahan School, which might bring in a little bit of revenue too. Chartwell's has been excellent in what they've tried to do. They really have tried to think of different ways to raise money. They've promoted things. It's just been tough. The labor costs are very high, and there's really nothing you can do about that. It's contracted.
Mr. Hawkeiser?
Who's buying breakfast at the Bresnahan?
I'm sorry, what?
You said a breakfast program at the Bresnahan, like for kids that are there early?
Yeah.
Like for the morning program kind of thing?
It's going to be it'll be for any child that comes in early and wants breakfast. I think they put it off until November, I want to say.
I just didn't realize that there was a free space where kids are like, oh, I'm here early, let me go see what for
It'll be in the
breakfast.
cafeteria.
You know what I'm saying, but like,
Oh, I see what you're saying.
Like-
Yeah, where the
I
kids
thought that was
go.
a pretty
Supervision time
tight
and-
timeline.
Yeah,
Like I could see at the high school when kids are kind of just floating in the morning, but
They've postponed it a month because they have to work out the details, so I'd have to see what the timelines are. I haven't gotten those yet.
Probably could use an update
Okay,
from the new director too, because
absolutely, yeah.
we haven't had them school committee yet this year.
Yeah, we wanted to wait till they got their feet on the ground, and then there was some kind of a glitch, so that we all got a memo that that program isn't going to start till November, so. And I'm assuming the principals are working with Chartwells to figure out what's the best logistically.
And when I say labor costs are high, I'm not saying our people are overpaid or anything like that. I'm just saying that, benefits are expensive. Insurance, as the mayor knows, is very expensive for the city side, while, the vacations and the personal times and the longevities, it does add up. And they're entitled to those benefits, and they should have those benefits. But it's something we have to look at as a whole to how to best run the program successfully.
And the contract we negotiated this year is a 3-year or?
3-year. They're part of AFSCME along with our
Okay.
clerical and custodians.
Okay,
Yep.
okay. Any other questions on our state of the state here?
Just a comment.
Mr. Menon?
And I said this at the FinCom, but I really, really appreciate the transparency of these kinds of reports to us. And I also really appreciate that whenever we request information, it's right there. You're very receptive and responsive to that. And I think that we're in really good hands in terms of managing this information and getting it out, and I really appreciate that.
Thank you.
And then do you want to say a word at all about this chart page?
Not really. I mean, it's just.
I didn't think you would. No, I know.
Something I was looking at. It really
But
isn't going to show you
it's
much.
pretty
It just
stark.
Yeah. It just kind of shows you, how
People
choice
who
has
are
gone up
naturally impaired
significantly.
like me, it's nice to have graphics.
That's right, see?
For anybody who likes to see things color-coded, there you go.
Thanks so much for that, Nancy. And that probably would take care of Mr.
Did you,
Holmes.
just one last thing, did you maybe want to talk about
Resonating.
the decrease in school building revenue? Anything there?
School building revenue has gone down somewhat. We are working with youth services to get a piece. We've gotten the Y program is now giving us a certain monthly fee that's been increased. We have a cost that we share with the city for a half-time employee who does an excellent job with our fields, and it saves us significant amount of money in what we used to pay for the grounds services, aligning of fields and such like that. But that salary has been coming out of school building maintenance. And the summer children, so they're not children, but the summer staff comes out of school building maintenance. And I think we need to look at absorbing that, as much as I know it's going to be extremely difficult, into the LEA, so that we can start having a little bit more money remaining in school building maintenance. The schools, high school especially, is going to need things, and that's the only fund we have. So I think we need to just look at what we can absorb in the LEA for those two things.
Is this where typically any user fees for use of the gyms by
Yes.
the leagues would come?
Yeah.
Go into? Okay.
That's really one of the only avenues that we have for revenue for school building maintenance.
And how about, it's not on here because it's not a revolving, but how are we faring in special education?
Actually, transportation this year is very low. We're about $100,000 under budget in transportation so far this year. Doesn't mean it's going to stay
Because
there.
school only started.
Yeah,
You got a
just
whole
started.
year to go.
Doesn't mean in any way that it's going to stay that way, which is good. Right on target. We've moved. But generally, what I have them do is encumber everything in the LEA. Take a look at it. It'll show me that we're, $300,000 in the red. Then we start moving some of those encumbrances over to circuit breaker. It gives us a better idea of how much money we have in each place. It just looks cleaner, it's easier to understand. So we've moved the money over into, the encumbrances over into circuit breaker, and we still have funds in circuit breaker for tuition for anything that comes up. So we're doing well there so far.
So how are you feeling about the money we have as our HR person?
For FY18,
Or 19?
for FY18, I think it's going to be a good year. We did very well with our hiring. We had a number of teachers that retired late after the budget was done. So they retired at a very high salary, and we hired at, a significant savings. So we have some money there for, we need to hire an IA, but we had savings originally of almost $100,000 in our salary account. We haven't done our encumbrances for salaries now. I expect that to change because now the salary information memorandums, which is what I was working on last week, it has to be out to all the teachers by September 30th by contract. So they've all gotten those, which tell them, I have to report to them their degree, their steps, their credits, and their attendance. So now they're saying, you know, oh, I've got 3 more credits, it's going to move me to. So we're just cleaning all that up, and once that's done, then we'll do a projection and an encumbrance for salaries, and we'll have a better idea of where that is.
And Angela, can I ask you, have we hired 100%? Do we have any openings?
No.
So we're full?
We just hired the last IA last week, so.
Okay, that's great. Any
Crossing
other
guards,
questions
too?
about that?
What we're going to hire, yes. I mean, we've had some additional requests for a crossing guard, but the amount of students that it impacted didn't.
Warranted,
Yeah,
perhaps?
I mean, I'd love to have a crossing guard on every corner, but
Well, we all would.
it's just not feasible. And we've had Charter just recently put in a request to me about an extension on one of the crossing guards' time, but they would be responsible for that additional cost. So all the hiring is done,
Wonderful.
as of now.
Thank you. Anybody have a question? Further budget question? Mr. Cole, was there anything you want to add?
No, I think it's been
Okay.
well covered. I just want to reiterate the facts about school choice essentially being spent down in the next couple of years. I also think that's reflective of the fact that, you know, it's one thing when you have a classroom that's, you know, staffed with a teacher and you have empty seats, but I think the trend has been that we've been filling up our classes. And you know, we've often discussed choice in the last couple of 3 years, whether we want to start it back up, but the fact of the matter is we don't have the classroom space. You know, 5 or 6 years ago, there were times when we had maybe at the high school, you know, well under 700 students, and that was an invitation to, you know, consider choice, you know, at the 9th grade level. But now, as we all know, it's I don't want to say it's overcrowded, but we're right up near capacity. So it's times are different. You know, we don't necessarily have the room for you know, the choice students at this point.
Thank you. Moving on, we have 2 exciting field trips, and I see we've got the high school principal here and a couple of teachers.
Thank you, Nancy.
Thanks, Nancy.
Good evening. Thank you for having us this evening. My name is Amy Mahoney. I'm a visual arts teacher, and also here tonight is Catherine Taggart and Erin Hobbs from the science department. Erin and I are both running international trips for students this year. Actually, it's my 3rd time being in front of you talking about these opportunities, which are just so phenomenal and fantastic. Both of our trips are in April and over vacation, with the possibility of missing 1 day of school. We're running both our programs through EF Tours, which is where I've run my trips for. This will be my 4th trip that I'll be taking students on, and have great success with them. So we have 1 trip going to China, that's the trip that I'm leading, and 1 trip going to Costa Rica, and Erin will tell you a little bit about that trip. We're very excited about this kind of an opportunity for students. I'm aware of the things you love to learn about, so I want to talk a little bit about making sure that all students have an opportunity to go on these incredible educational trips. Both of us are running fundraising programs. We've set a target for our trip to raise $7,000 to pay for all the tipping, bus to the airport and back, and some of the various expenses that we'll have on the trip. In addition, and we raised almost $3,000 of that at this point. And in addition, I've already accrued $1,500, and I'm in the works of trying to get another $1,500 to pay scholarship money for students that have special financial needs. It's very, very important to me, and I think to all of us that work at the high school and middle school, that every student has a chance that wants to take part in these things. So we work really hard to make that happen. The other thing I want to say about the China trip, and then Darren will say a little bit about the Costa Rica trip, is the trip that I'm leading on. I run it through a student club, the International Culture Club. We meet once a month in the evenings. Parents come to that meeting. We have an hour and a half class. So this is basically we'll meet for a year and a half before a trip. And in those trips, we teach them things like how to be a good traveler, a little bit about the language of where we're going to go, some of the history and culture, and we participate in activities that get them to understand more about that culture. For instance, on this trip, I have a field trip to Chinatown in November. We have a master calligrapher coming to teach the kids about calligraphy, its meaning, its history, and also to practice it. And we also have a Taoist monk coming to teach Tai Chi in February. So these are all opportunities for them to have authentic experiences before we even go. And this has been the agenda for every one of the trips that I've had the pleasure to be able to be involved in. And I really appreciate that we've been able to support these things within the high school. The China trip is going to focus on Beijing and the history of China. So we'll visit the Forbidden City. I got a lot of echo going.
I know, the voice just went way up, the Forbidden City.
All right, not really.
Take a step back.
But anyways,
Tape on the floor.
we meet with students in a high school so that we can compare and contrast with students their age, their educational experiences. We're going to be meeting with our contemporary artists to look at freedom of expression and freedom of speech in contemporary China. And we'll be addressing with leaders from a college issues that China faces today, such as maybe global warming or overpopulation. They're in a big boom, and how do they handle all of that? Or maybe just how to negotiate between countries. Right? So it's going to be a really exciting time, and we're really looking forward to it. The trip is $2,950 is the cost of the trip. It's in the handout that we provided. And again, our goal is to do plenty of fundraising and getting a lot of support in that hand and help those that need it. I'll turn this over to Aaron to tell a little bit about the science department's ideas.
You never know what it's going to do.
My name is Erin Hawks, like Aileen had mentioned, and this is Catherine Taggart, and we are leading the science trip this coming spring to Costa Rica. We have an initiative to really expose some of our students to science phenomena around the world. And one of them being, this is our first trip to Costa Rica, and we currently have about 43 students signed up and ready to go. We are fundraising to raise money for cover the cost, the extra costs in addition to the regular costs. And we have already done 2 fundraisers, which are a car wash, a bake sale, and a Yankee candle sale. And we've already raised about $2,200 of our $5,500 goal for that already. Our objective gets back to really putting kids in the trenches of science phenomenon. The trip, Miss Taggart has some extra copies I had, so I figured we'd bring them. They're going to be visiting a coffee bean plantation, talking about fair trade and sustainability. They're also going to be going through a tropical rainforest and butterfly sanctuary and they'll be doing a crocodile boat cruise. And basically, conservation and sustainability are our main focus for the itinerary for this trip. And that's really our objective, really expose students to that. We will have 6 chaperones, 5 of them have been confirmed and plan on going, and it's all from the science department. So the students will have both biology teachers, chemistry teachers, and physics teachers on hand to explain anything anything that they see, or at least attempt to explain anything that we see along the way. So we're really excited, we're looking forward to it, and the kids seem really excited as well for this trip.
I just have to ask a question. With everything going on in the world, talk to me about safety.
I'd like to cover that for you because I've had a little more experience with this. The very first trip I came to you about was the trip to the Arts of France and Spain. As you know, during that trip, we had 2 terrorist attacks.
Right.
But we went and we had a great time. So my first thing is something that we all know. There isn't anywhere in this world that's safe. When we stop to think about it. We just today are facing a tragedy in our own country. EF Tours, the reason I chose them after looking at a number of companies is that they're the oldest and longest running company providing these kinds of services. They have offices in every continent. They have in every country that they travel to facilities. And they have expert ground people. We will have a tour director, both of us have a tour director who's with us 24/7, who knows our whole itinerary, who understands, who's from there, speaks the language, and has tremendous training behind them. I've been on several training seminars with EF to meet with people, to learn what they go through. It's just amazing. They have a program in place to help when there are situations. And it starts right now. I mean, we're here in front of you. We've been working towards our trips now for 6 months. And you have to approve this trip for us to go forward. And so we have a school committee guarantee. So that's sort of like the kinds of expertise that they put behind their trips, that they feel that so confident that they can say that they can guarantee. If you deny us this trip, for whatever reason you the right ones, no student is going to lose out from that. So that's an example. But it goes further than that, because we want to really talk about what happens just before we go and while we're on the trip, right? So up until a moment ago, if something were to happen, the EF tour will get together with us, they assess the situation, we look at what does the advisory from the government say, and they can have them on the fly. They can say, all right, they don't travel to Mexico anymore. They don't travel to Egypt anymore. They did have a story they told me one time, this is an interesting story, they had a trip going to Egypt. And the Egyptian summer happened, or the Arab summer happened, just before the people were about to leave in Egypt. So within about 3 days said, well, do you want to cancel the tour, or do you want to go somewhere else? They picked, let's go somewhere else, and they picked Japan. They were on their flight, and they flew to Milwaukee or something like that. They get there, and they get a call. We can't take you to Japan. The tsunami had just happened. This is what happened to this trip. Mm-hmm. Do you want to go home, or do you want to go somewhere else? They went to France, and they had an incredible vacation. Like that. That's just an example of an extreme, right? But they have people on the ground and have helped in all kinds of situations. When the Icelandic volcano went off, people were stranded for over a week. They got to continue their tour. It didn't cost them any more. They just said, well, you're with us. Let's go where else? Here we are. We're in England. Let's go do some traveling and let's check things out.
So we don't know where you're going to wind up, is what you're trying to say.
Right. Well, that's the idea.
Well, we're hoping it's Costa Rica.
Right.
I'm giving you this, like, as I said, as an example of how they can maneuver things and take care of things if there were problems. We're not foreseeing any problems. We're pretty safe places to travel to, but again, you can never know, and so it's good to have the support of a company that has, an organization that has such a background behind it. And that's why, I like working with them. It's probably the number one reason I chose them.
Thank you. Mr. Menon?
This is one of those extraordinarily rare moments when I've actually been to one of the places that you're presenting us with. And I strongly support, the trip that I went was Costa Rica, and in fact, my itinerary was almost identical to this, whitewater rafting, Arenal volcano. I'm happy to come in and talk to your group if you want, because these are places that I've been. I think that this is very much in line with our idea that it's really important to get kids out in the environment, to get them out doing sort of place-based education. There are over 900 species of birds that have been sighted in Costa Rica, 900. That's more than have been sighted in the United States and Canada put together. It is an extraordinary place. It is rich in science. There actually is a guy who is a professor of biology at University of Massachusetts, who lives in Newburyport, who used to run a program in Costa Rica doing surveys of census surveys of patches of land in Costa Rica, looking at all the species that were there. So I really strongly support this. I think it's a great place to go for kids, and if you need me to talk about it, I'm happy to do that.
Or go.
Yeah, I can be a chaperone, yeah, sure. I just wanted to, I didn't want to offer to be a chaperone.
What's your Spanish, Bruce?
Hasta la vista.
If I can just piggyback on what you're saying.
Right.
Yeah, we, spent most of my career at Keene High School, and in the 20 years I was there, and since I've left, they did a trip to the rainforest and to the coast of Belize. And they do that trip yearly. And it's one of the highlights of students in that high school to, A, go on that trip and B, experience it, because it's almost, in some instances, life-changing. Aileen has already sat down with me in the last 2 weeks talking about a trip after China. So she's already got the wheels in motion to put something together for something down the road the year after. So I'm hoping that the science trip doesn't have to be to the same destination all the time.
No.
But as you said, it gives kids, there can be great learning happening outside the walls of a high school, whether it's Newburyport High School or any other high school in the United States. And this is a prime example. I mean, these educators are going on this trip, but they're also, they're responsible for 40-plus students at each venue, and they're giving up their time, energy, and effort because they feel strongly that the bottom line is it benefits kids. And when you have that as your bottom line, it's going to be a great experience, and kids are going to come back from that with stories to tell.
Absolutely.
Can I just say just want to add a little one to what you were just saying, or maybe two. One of the things that I've been very passionate about, and I've spoken to the superintendent, and Mike knows I've spoken to him many times, is the idea that our students need to become global citizens. Catherine and I sit on a PLC for global citizenship for our the students who graduate with certifications colleges are looking for. We live in a world where kids need to know more about not just our little area, but the globe itself, whether it's because of environmental issues or just understanding other people's cultures so they can do business with them, and having empathy so we can maybe solve some of the world's problems. We have to go beyond our borders to do that, whether that means going beyond New England or going beyond the United States. So for that reason is one reason I'm passionate for my students to do this. But I'm also passionate about giving the same opportunities for teachers. And I've made it I strive to make sure that the chaperones I invite are from across the curriculum. And while I always want to have one other experienced chaperone going, I try to also give opportunities to people on the staff that maybe haven't had that. It broadens their horizon, and that's going to make them better educators. So I'm bringing chaperones from not just the arts, but also I'm bringing a school nurse. I have a history teacher and an English teacher going as well. When we went to Cuba, we had Catherine came with me, so we had a number of departments represented there as well. So that's a passion as well. So provide that opportunity for our educators to grow and expand their horizons, to bring that back into the classroom.
Any further questions, or are we ready to take a vote?
I move approval of the 2 trips.
Second?
Second, yeah, we have to.
Any further discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Have a great trip and be safe.
Thank you very much.
I know. Next up, you're already seated at the table, Mr. Parent, which is a fortuitous thing.
That's why I want to talk to you.
Next up on our agenda is a continuing discussion that we've had, and Mr. Parent promised to come back and report to us, and I realize that it's very early in the year. But we would like to have conversation about these 3 different topics. So if we could separate them out a little bit. First one, could you talk a little bit about community service requirements?
We ask that all students through their 4 grades in Newburyport High School complete 10 hours of community service. That has not gone to the level of being a graduation requirement. We ask students to complete the minimum of 10 hours.
In the 4 years?
In every 4 years.
Right, so...
So 40 hours total by the time that they're a senior.
Oh, okay.
So, for example, in our summer reading program that we ran last week, freshmen did mindfulness at the high school, sophomores did the Mount Major trip. I went with the juniors to the beach because last year I had done the hike. And seniors do community service, and many of them came to the elementary and Knock and Mullen and spent time with young people in their classrooms and teachers. Some were out in the community doing other activities for other organizations. So we had nearly 200 seniors out and about in the city that day doing community. Those hours would count towards their 10. Do we get 100%? No. But we make that we give that option to students. It's just like if a student misses school, we don't make them do the day that they've missed. We just say you should get your work and make it up. I think students have been, for the most part, accepting of that. I think it's a great idea. I would love to see it become a graduation requirement, so it becomes more formal. We've done it now, I believe, 3 years through, and we're doing it more through our advisory program. As the advisory program morphs and changes, I think it's giving more credence to our students and also to the advisors themselves that there are components of it that are tied to the curriculum that we offer our students grades 9 through 12 in our advisory. So I would love to move this towards a graduation requirement.
What would that take?
What's the process?
That would take me sitting with Susan, coming to you with a proposal and
Are there a minimum number of hours for credit is involved in this at all? Or?
I think that's a totally different conversation. We do have students that do community service hours for actual credit.
Okay.
Those hours are way above and beyond the 10 that we ask of all students. I've mentioned in my graduation speeches in the last several years of some students accumulating over 400 hours of community service. So it varies. I mean, for some students, getting to that 10 might be a struggle. For other students, getting to 400 is a goal of theirs. It's a great thing to propose to a college, because most colleges now are requiring students to do some sort of community service as students of their institutions. But I think having a graduation requirement of community service would be a wonderful thing to do.
I guess I was asking for it to be a requirement, is that up to us as a district?
Yes.
It's not predetermined how many hours it has to be?
It's not a state requirement at all. It would be a requirement
So it's
of
local.
our district. I know there are other school districts that do require community service hours as part of their graduation requirements for all students. We wanted to approach this slowly, take a look at it, what's working, what's not, and I think once that advisory has kind of grown on people and it's become an accepted part of the culture of the high school, that's a great avenue to monitor it, to advocate for it, and to work with, especially work with students that might have an issue with well, how do I get my 10 hours in? And I'll talk more about counselor caseloads and some of the ideas I have about the community service linked to that coming forward too.
Go right ahead. Anybody have questions on this part? Mr. DeCanter?
Yeah, I would be interested, as part of the recommendation, if you can take a look at some of the colleges and universities that are requiring community services, what levels of community service they are requiring, just to have that as a guideline as we think about what it is that we're going to require.
Or even other high schools in our area.
That doesn't worry me so much as colleges, because the colleges are the downline recipient of this work. The other areas are competitive, but only, but it's limited by where you live, so that it would be good to know. But I think more to outlining the policy, I'd like to know what colleges are requiring.
Mayor?
Certainly reach out and see if we can find that information for you.
Just current data of where students are now.
Yep, I have the data from the 2 previous years. We're still inputting data from last year. I have one of the secretaries at the high school who inputs all the data for all of the students. Have a form to fill out that they fill out what they've done, who the contact person is, how many hours, what was the activity or that they did. And so all of that information is now, Judy Webster created a space in X2 for us to put that data at each individual student's X2 records. So I can give you pertinent information from the previous 2 years. We're still inputting some data from last year.
This would be good to know, the percentage of students, number of average hours.
Yep.
Thank you.
And it's great that you already have that, because it would help in the future if it does become a graduation requirement. You've sort of got the basis of it working.
Got the basis for it, and as we move forward, again, I'll talk a little bit about counselor caseloads. I think that'll kind of show how it's linked together.
Well, do you want to go into that right now?
Sure.
Then we'll do dual enrollment after.
Sure. Okay. So for 3 of the counselors, they have a caseload of 225 students. 1 counselor has a caseload of 93. That counselor also oversees my internship and work-study programs. I have over 80 students, between 80 and 90 students currently in internships and work-study programs. These are, I'd say, 95% or higher percentage seniors who are taking advantage of doing internships, either during the school day, during a class.
That's great.
Or doing it after school or on the weekends.
That's very good.
Again, one of the reasons that we went to our current schedule of not having a waterfall schedule where the last period every day changed. Now, in a 7-day period, there are 5 Gs and 2 Fs. Kids with G periods, 5 out of 7 days, can go to that site and do their internship at the end of the school day. So that counselor that's doing the internship work study also has taken on working directly with our DARE students from the DARE House, and also working with our ELL student population. That has given that person a full caseload, and then if you look at my other 3 counselors, they're well over 200. So don't be surprised if the old gray-haired guy comes to you budget time saying, I need another counselor to take some of the load off of the 3 teachers that have 3 counselors who have 225. Right. And we've been working, Angela and I have been working with trying to raise the FTE of my business teacher, which is going to be another personnel thing that'll be coming to you, so that business teacher, part of her day will be working with the current counselor on internships and work study. So it's a good match. They're actually have formed a building-based PLC this year.
This is
to
exciting.
work on that subject.
I'm smiling,
So-
either internally or externally, because we talk so much about, global education and opportunities, and this is great news.
What freeing up that counselor from having a caseload of almost 200 is she's able now, on a weekly basis, to go out to the internship sites and work study sites and actually meet with the people that our students are working for or doing stuff with, and making a connection within the community. Getting another counselor involved and our business teacher involved just enhances that program, but it also reduces the caseload for our other 3 counselors who have agreed to take on a little bit higher in order for us to meet the needs of our ELL DARE students and the work that's needed to oversee the internship work-study program. Those numbers, since we dropped the waterfall schedule a couple years ago, have increased every year. Like I said, we're just under 90 students this semester.
Are these counselors broken up by grade level?
They're all broken up by grade level and by the alphabet, so they all share freshmen, sophomores, juniors, and seniors.
Oh, they do?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you got a counselor when you start,
Right.
and that counselor
It's
sticks
the
with you.
same.
through
Yeah, the hope is you have that same counselor through your 4 years, and just like with the advisory, my senior advisors last year are now my freshman advisors this year. And hopefully they stay with the
Right, that's
current
great.
freshmen through their 4 years and really create that bond
Gives you
between
somebody-
that group of 11 to 13 students and that one staff member.
So for me to just get an idea here, if I'm an average high school student, I don't know if that exists, how many contact hours would I have with my guidance counselor? And I know it depends on years,
It
but...
depends.
So I'm a freshman. Have all the freshmen met their guidance counselors yet?
All freshmen will meet their guidance counselors through our wellness program because our counselors go down and do some work with the wellness staff with our 9th grade students.
I don't know that either.
All of our counselors have been in senior English classes going over the college application process already.
Okay.
So we have found unique ways to get our counselors, it may not be a one-to-one
No.
meeting with each student,
Understood.
but they get to meet the staff members in my guidance office by going to particular classes or doing certain activities with each
So
particular
they're
grade.
getting more than...
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah.
Anything further? Because I think we're going to hear more about counseling needs at the high
Oh,
school.
you'll hear from me.
In the next couple months, so any clarity that we can understand the need there. Angela?
I just want to add that everything that Mike just spoke about all supports our strategy 3 in the strategic plan really beautifully. You're really making that actionable through all of the work that they've focused on. So anytime we
nice to
can
have
kind of
that plan, huh?
remember. Right, it is.
And I
Right.
just want to, Trish Blackstock, who is our guidance director, would be here tonight, but she is fulfilling her SEI or SEL course.
No, SEI?
SEI course, along with Kyle Hodgson on Monday nights for the next several weeks. So that's why she was
And what is
unable to
that?
be here.
That's sheltered English immersion endorsement.
That we're all required to do. So they're doing that on Monday nights for the foreseeable future. So Trish would have been here
Understood.
to talk more about this because it's really her vision that I'm talking about here.
But you share it.
Absolutely, 100%.
Anybody, any further at this point, Mr. Cole?
Yeah, I just want to add, I think we're really fortunate that we haven't had any turnover with any of our guidance people either. It's been a really...
We've had a pretty solid group, and when Trish moved into her position, we hired a crackerjack young person who's come in and is looking at things from a different lens, which is always a great thing.
Mr. Decanter?
Yeah, I think, the whole area of counseling has been one that has worried me. Not so much in being able to service the students, because I think we are meeting the minimal requirements somehow. But the workload is such that we're not really capitalizing on all of the opportunities that we would have with a robust guidance program in there. So I'm encouraged to hear some of the plans you have, and I'm looking forward to getting the recommendation.
Anything further at this point? Credit? Dual enrollment?
Dual enrollment.
Credit?
I'm going to ask Angela to jump in here because Trish Blackstock is been elected the leader of the North Shore Guidance Directors, so she is kind of the president this year. So she organizes all of the North Shore Guidance monthly meetings of all of the guidance directors at all the high schools in the North Shore. And just last week, she brought in the Gateway to College program offered by North Shore Community College, and Angela happened to go to that, and I'm going to ask her to speak to that. But I can just briefly tell you that at Northern Essex, which we probably will be evolving into a new program since we lost the cohort with Pentucket, Triton, and Amesbury and us, we kind of got left being alone. So we've gone from 6 students last year to 3 students. But this Gateway to College program, I think, is going to serve us well in working with students in a different way to get them back on track to get to a 2-year or 4-year college. And
Thank you.
Angela.
Oh, thanks, Mike. The Gateway to College program is a little different than the dual enrollment program we have currently. The Gateway to College program is a national program, and it's designed to reach the student who is at risk of not finishing high school. For our non-traditional students who need an alternative path is who this program is designed for. And one of the things that I found really impressive about this program is that every student is supported by a success coach. And the success coach works with the students as they enter the program. The success coach meets with them almost like a homeroom teacher would. And when they enter the program, they stay together as a cohort at the beginning for the first semester. And they do basic requirements, and they really establish themselves in the college setting. This is through North Shore Community College. They've opened the program already on their Lynn campus, and they are looking to start the program in the Danvers campus this spring. But they work with the success coach. They stay in a cohort for the first semester. They attend classes 4 days a week, and the 5th day is the full day with the success coach, doing special programming to help them understand how to be successful in not only completing their high school diploma, but in choosing the kinds of college courses that they'd like to start in their second semester.
So this is a program instead of attending the high school? Instead
of attending the high school. It's a tuition-based from the high school for the students that will be attending. It's $4,250 per semester that's paid by the district for the students that attend. And the students, you sign an MOU or memorandum of understanding with the college just to say that you will recommend students for the program when they are appropriate. You don't make any financial commitment until you send a student, and then you commit a semester at a time. Because if the student doesn't meet success in the program, you're not locked in. The program runs for most students 3 semesters. They count on about 18 months to complete the program. And at the end of the program, they've completed all the credits they need to receive a diploma from our high school. And most of the students leave with 20 to 24 college credits as well. So they talk about it as a scholarship program for the college credits, because truly it does do that for the students. Plus, it teaches a population of student that was at risk of possibly not finishing high school. It teaches them that they can be successful in a college setting as well.
That's great.
So we're really excited about being involved with this. We're having some follow-up conversations. Tricia's organizing that because one of the obstacles to this is transportation.
I was going to ask that.
This doesn't include transportation.
They're opening up in Danvers, but still.
No, I know, but right now you'd have to go all the way to Lynn.
Right.
But they are opening on Danvers.
Which is
Danvers
fabulous,
site.
but still, you know.
I mean, Angela spoke to Trish and I about, C&J Transportation. Is that a possibility? Where they could make a stop?
Maybe they could stop right there.
So I think we have to explore all options here, working with the neighboring school districts to see if there's somehow we can get all of our students together and group them together and do the transportation regionally as opposed to each individual school district. So I think there's some options on the table that I think we really have to take a look at, because I know of at least 2 and maybe 3 students right now that I would love to be able to put them in this program, because I have major concerns whether they're going to make it or not at the high school, and they're going to end up being dropouts. And we're doing our part to try to keep them in school, but I think this would be a program that would be beneficial to those students moving forward. And I don't think it's for everyone, but I think it's a great opportunity for some of our students who are just not making it in a normal, traditional high school setting. And I think this would be a prime opportunity for some of our students who may have outgrown the high school for whatever reason, and have them have that ability to show people what they can do and get some self-confidence back, and not only earn their high school diploma, but walk away from the program with, an armful of college credits.
Which is phenomenal.
It's a wonderful opportunity for the right student. It's really directed at a certain population, but it's a really great opportunity, I think.
Passcode field.
And the fact that there's a mentor attached to each student, and they meet weekly, and so that, not that it will help the counseling load at the high school, but in a way it would too.
That component makes it unique, and I think a pretty special program.
Are we still working with Olin College?
No, that ended
last year, 2 years?
2 or 3 years ago.
Yeah. And we're not doing anything in the future? Or we don't know
The
yet?
distance was just too hard to overcome.
Right.
I mean, we did some great things with that school, but it was problematic on their end. We were finding ways to transport our kids there, but to get their students to us became problematic, and it was just not, there were too many issues to overcome distance-wise. I mean, you could go down there sometimes, and it would be an hour and a half to get to their campus, depending on traffic. And sometimes it was, 40 minutes. You just never knew what traffic getting by the 93 interchange on 95 was going to bring to you. So we had times where we were late. We had times where they were late. We had times where we were supposed to connect, and it just wasn't.
Sure. It always comes down to transportation.
Yeah. Where have I heard that before?
Sorry, I mean, but it's
true.
And if I can add to that, I don't know that we'd say never. I mean, it was a great relationship that we had with
No, but the
Olin
plans
College.
aren't in the works
But
right
they're
now.
not in the works.
Right.
But we're still building what STEM education is going to look like at the high school for our future. So Olin College could play a part in that. But
Maybe with UMass, opening up their engineering division in April. That's closer, we could.
That's right.
We could maybe, begin to explore
There'll be
something.
opportunities out there for us
Yeah.
and our students.
Yep.
Absolutely.
I'm just delighted that we're going after them, that's all.
All right. Thank you, Michael.
Questions? Mr. Decanter?
I just have one comment, Mr. Parent. It's the report I think that we received from you on all 3 fronts today is very exciting. I'm very encouraged by all of it. And I think there are other things that have somehow slipped under the radar screen of the kind of work, both academically and in the community, our high school kids are doing. I think we all received today an email from Kyle Hodgson explaining the charity and awareness that the different athletic teams are.
You're stealing my thunder. I was going to bring that up, but it's awesome.
It is awesome. I would like that email read into the record, please.
You want to read a couple of those to
Sure.
the public? It's
The field hockey team has raised $1,415 at last Monday's breast cancer awareness game versus Amesbury. Girls soccer is hosting a similar event today, and I was out there for a few minutes before I had to come here, and it was exciting, really good turnout. Boys and girls soccer will host Pentucket in the ALS game on October 14th. Boys and girls cross country participated in the Cure SMA 5K in Wakefield late in August. Cheer is selling gold shoelaces to bring awareness to pediatric cancer. The volleyball team, Meg Foley, is leading a capping at each home game to bring awareness to hereditary spastic paraplegia type 47, which one of her neighbors is affected by. It's one of these rare diseases that needs to get visibility, and she's doing everything she can with her team to do it. Casey McLaren, who's a basketball and baseball player, received the MIAA Community Service Award for organizing, collecting, and donating clothing to University of Houston's collection drive following Hurricane Harvey. So this is just within what has gone this part of the school year. That is outstanding. I'm so proud of the Clippers.
absolutely.
It's always nice to hear from you. You always have innovative news and successes. You know, I know it doesn't always happen that way, but I think our students are really understanding global awareness through all of this and taking responsibility. It's beautiful. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Mike, if I could just ask you to bring up one more thing, and I don't have the names of the two athletes. I think I know one of them, but I know last week there was a cross-country meet last Wednesday with Hamilton Wenham at Maudsley, and
Yes.
there were two Newburyport runners who
Newburyport runners.
Molly
stopped.
Rose Kearney and Emma Vanderberg.
Yeah, that was just an outstanding display of sportsmanship, and because they're a couple of lead pack runners, and they
stopped to help the Hamilton
Yeah.
Wenham runner,
Yeah.
who was on the farthest point into Maudsley. My wife and I walked it yesterday, and I wanted to see where that incident had happened so I could gauge where it was in relation, because we had ATVs out there, we had
And
ambulances.
you were there. You were there.
Kyle and I
Kyle
were
was there
both
as well. Yeah.
And then we also had a second Hamilton Wenham runner need medical assistance. After that young lady was taken by ambulance, we had to have a second ambulance come in for another girl it was a heat-related incident after the finish line. And so it was quite an evening, but, you know, kudos to the first responders who came. You know, Amy Haas, who's one of the cross-country coaches, was the first adult there, called 911 right away, got the ball rolling, but our two athletes stopped the race to assist that opponent in a medical crisis. And I sought Molly Rose out and spoke to her after everything had happened. I haven't gotten to the other student yet, but I will this week, and just thank her for doing that and, you know, really giving up their opportunity, but seeing that was what's more important. You know, it's a sporting event, and it's a medical life situation, and, you know, they did the right thing. And you always want to honor students who do end up doing the right thing. So thank you, Nick, for bringing that up.
Awesome.
I appreciate that.
Thank you so much.
I want to talk about
Absolutely.
one more thing. Class rank. Because that was on my list. I don't know if it was on yours.
It was on ours,
Okay.
but we didn't know if you were ready to report
I'm
yet.
ready. I'm ready.
All right.
We presented, actually,
You
the
just don't wanna come
students
back.
last year presented a pretty comprehensive overview of class rank. They did, with the help of Mr. Abrams, who's in the process of doing his doctorate, and has done a lot of work on what are viable surveys and what are not, but they did a survey of the entire student body, which was presented to this school committee last year as to the feelings of the majority of the students at the high school was to let go of class rank. And that, I thought, was in the direction that we were going in when I met with the school committee on another issue, either late April or early May. We had talked about it, and I think there was an unofficial gathering of who has supported it on the school committee, and it seemed to be not a unanimous decision, but near unanimous, that we would do away with class rank for the current juniors, that it was too late for the now seniors. So these seniors will be ranked. But our recommendation is that moving forward with this year's juniors, as opposed to giving them an actual class rank, but to do a decile determination on the students. You're in the top 10% of the class, or you're in the top 20% of the class. That's what many of the area high schools have done, that have done away with the actual class rank. That gives us another year to decide, what do we do with the speakers at graduation? We have about a dozen scholarship committees that we need to meet with, and I would urge that we meet with them more formally to talk about their language in their scholarship requirements and how that might change based on going to a decile reporting of a student as opposed to their actual class rank. So I'm coming to you, asking you to approve that, because I don't want to get in a situation like we were in last year, where we had already reported out the seniors' class rank, because we do that right at the end of the first semester in January. That, for juniors, that's the first time that they would get their class rank. I'm proposing that in January or early February of this year, we do a decile reporting to the current juniors. The seniors are already done. Everything moves forward like it has in the past for this current graduating class, but that for next year's graduating class, it's going to be a little bit different. And there are some loose ends to tie up between now and next year.
So do we call for a vote and open up a discussion?
Why wouldn't we have discussion?
Pardon me?
Did you say that we wouldn't have discussion?
No. Could we open up a vote?
Well, we need to have
a motion and then have a legitimate discussion.
I move that we approve the high school's recommendation to move to a decile class ranking system starting with this year's junior class.
Second.
All right, now I'd like to open it up for discussion. One of the things that I would like to recall, Mike, I remember exactly what you're talking about and, your presentation from last year. And I think two of the major points that I took away from that are, would it jeopardize any scholarships for students because we took away that rank? That was one of the questions we had, that we didn't want anyone to lose out.
Yep.
And the second piece was how you choose the speakers at graduation.
Okay, I'll give you some, I can give you some options.
Could anybody else, is that pretty much what you recall as our two largest? Yep. And I wouldn't say they were concerns, they were just questions.
I think for our internal scholarships that apply to Newburyport High School students, whether it's class rank or decile reporting, I think we have to, again, reach out to several, I'd say somewhere between 10 and 12 scholarships to work with them on their language within their current scholarship format. That's not a big issue. As far as any scholarships that students apply to outside of Newburyport in some regional, statewide, or national, I think there's enough schools that just do the decile reporting that it's not, we're not going to stand out as a high school, oh my God, what does this school do? We've never seen that before. I think it's a very common thing that schools have done. And remember, that wasn't my report. That came from the students.
Right.
They were the ones that came forward with the request. It didn't come from the high school principal or the guidance director or the staff. It was a group of concerned students that were concerned about a couple things. Number one, the overall stress that's out there. This may help eliminate some of that stress for some students. There were students that didn't want to know their class rank when it was being shared on Instagram with all of the seniors and juniors, and so we changed the way that we give out our class rank.
You
with our
come and
students,
if you want it.
If you want it. So students could say, I'm not really care about it if they didn't want to know.
Right.
But it also, I think, will free students up that, it's not always about class rank / GPA. GPA is going to be there no matter what we do. We have to do that. But the class rank thing, I think, has run its course. I think the decile reporting is an accurate thing, and it's done by many high schools, and it's not going to put any of our students in a negative position as far as scholarships or applications to college. I firmly believe that we will move forward like we always have. We just won't have a class rank. So I don't foresee that as having any negative effects on any of our students moving forward. And again, we'll continue with the status quo for this current graduating class of 2018, but for the graduating class of 2019, our current juniors, they would not get a class rank in end of January, early February. They would get a decile reporting of that. They certainly have a right to know their GPA, weighted and unweighted, because we utilize both for things like National Honor Society. That's not going to change that in any way either. Bruce?
I just have, I guess, 3 quick questions. One is, when you are using the term decile reporting, that I'm assuming that means in 10% increments?
Yes.
So somebody will either be in the top 10%, top 20%, top 30, top 40, top 50?
Yep. I mean, I came from another high school where, we didn't do class rank, and for the top 10 students, and I think Amesbury does this, they have a dinner for the top 10% of the class as a way of recognizing what they've done academically, but they're listed alphabetically and not by class rank. So there's a lot of twists and things that you can do as a school, but to still recognize students' abilities and drive and determination as far as meeting their academic goals, and not actually have a class rank attached to that student.
My second question is that you see the shift to decile as a transition to no ranking?
It would be no ranking as of next year.
Okay. So there wouldn't even be decile after next year?
There would be decile. We would substitute
After next year.
decile for the actual class rank.
So decile is, again, I want to understand, because students came to us asking for no class ranking.
Right.
And what you're suggesting is that going forward, we would always be doing a decile rank?
Yeah. That's the recommendation that in talking to Trish and what the information that we have gathered from other area high schools, that's kind of what some schools have been doing for a period of time.
Why?
It still honors.
Sorry, maybe that was your third
It still honors
question.
people, and it gives the colleges at least a foundation of where the student, sits in relation to other kids. But it doesn't rank you as number 1 or number 75 or 150.
So take this question as...
Well, I just have a third.
Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Menem.
Has this been presented to those students who had concerns about class ranking, and what's their response been?
No,
That you would go
because
decile?
they have graduated.
Okay, but there must be students there right now who have those same concerns.
I would say, based on the survey results we had, there were a lot of students that had those same concerns.
So, but they don't know that you plan to do the decile for the year?
Not until I get approval from this group, and I will go back and make sure that everybody understands where we are and how we're moving forward.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I had a question about that too. So there was nothing in the survey that you did that gave them alternatives to class rank? You just were asking them what they thought about class rank?
Wanted it or did not want it. I mean, the group that presented last year, which was predominantly seniors because it had affected them the year before, this has been like a 2-year process here that we're talking about.
Right.
They were the ones that came forward originally to present it in their junior year, followed through in their senior year, have since graduated, and they were the ones that had the most, I would say, drive and voice in bringing this idea forward. That's not to say that other students haven't, but I think other students have seen what these students have done, both school-wide and presenting to the school committee and everything, so they feel that, all of that has already been presented. There's no need to present it a second time.
Indeed it was. Mr.
It's pretty
Hawkeiser, do you
comprehensive.
still have a question?
Yeah, I'm trying to think of how to word it because it comes off as. It sounds to me like hanging on to deciles is just doing that. We're hanging on to something that we've been asked to do away with. So I'm just, so I'm at, well, my question, I guess, is when we talk about colleges, is there any legitimate reason to keep it?
No, because the colleges are going to take, well, the colleges take a student's GPA and they break it down.
Right.
Anyways,
They do
the
it.
GPA that you end up with after high school is not the GPA that the college looks at. They will take a student's transcript and they will self-select certain courses and figure out the GPA in those courses, and that's going to be the determining factor for them as far as whether the student gets in or not. So it's not even the entire transcript that a college is really interested in. That's the conversation I try to have with parents when a student is getting a C in an AP class, that it's okay.
Right.
Because they're not looking at everything all 4 years per se. They're looking at, especially if you're trying to get into a specific program at a college or university, they're taking that entire transcript and breaking it down into what they're looking at in comparing student A from Newburyport High School to student B from Lexington High School to student C from, Chicopee High School.
Any further questions?
Just before we take a vote, I want to make sure what I'm voting.
Well, I was going to ask to restate everything, I guess from Mr. Parent's point of view, rather than our notes. So we'll do it again.
I'm okay with not having decile reporting also. I mean, I'm all about, in my view right now, I'm all about honoring what the students asked for last year, which was to get rid of class rank.
Right.
If this group feels that decile reporting is just another way of doing that, I would rather just do away with it altogether and just go on GPA and let the high school figure out. I mean, we did ask the students a question, if there were no valedictorian and salutatorian, who would you want to speak at graduation? That was one of the survey questions, and I don't have it in front of me, and I can't remember verbatim what the answer was, but students had some creative ideas about, the graduation speakers. And remember, I've had students in my office who have basically pounded their fist on the table in a respectful way saying, there is no way I'm speaking at graduation, and they were one of the Val or Sal's. So, but I think there was I think enough students saw it as being an issue, bringing it forward so that students would take the classes they want to take and not let class rank be a deciding factor.
Absolutely.
It's so important.
It would be one way that we could help relieve a small part of the stress that students have on their lives in today's world as they compete not only nationally with other students going to colleges here, but internationally.
Would you at all find it helpful to do what Bruce was talking about, to have it as a transition this year and then talk about it again
I'm
next
always
year?
looking for pilot and transition plans. I think that's a great idea.
Yeah, the way the motion was worded did not talk about ongoing, it talked about this year's junior class.
That's why I would like him, before we vote, to actually...
I think there are things that we still need to get cleared up. I would like to see, if this is the stated direction that we vote for, I would like to see a similar survey redone, including the options of... No?
I respectfully...
Either that, Mike, or we need to have some data as to what the students feel about it, about the decile program.
I think, to be honest with you, I think I may be the wrong person here. I think Trish Blackstock has the deepest background in this area as the Director of Guidance. I'd like to have her come to a future meeting so that we could speak more intelligently about it rather than me babbling about it.
I think the students worked, at least the ones who came last year, and from what I understand, the survey you took didn't have any mention of it, and they were pretty clear they just want to do away with class rank.
Correct.
So it seemed like the decile thing was a transition for the adults in the world, and the students are pretty well spoken. So that's why I was asking if it's functional. If it's not, I have no problem voting with what the students came to us with. I have absolutely no problems with that.
That's what they came. That was their...
Mr. Cole, do you have anything to add?
Well, it sounds like we might want to withdraw the motion and make a new motion.
That's what so...
I withdraw my motion. Who seconded it?
I did.
You agree?
Okay, I'll withdraw my second.
Thank you.
So let's go back. Could you give us a clear statement about class rank and not put in the 10%?
My
recommendation?
My recommendation is that for the class of 2019, our current junior class, that class and subsequent classes at Newburyport High School are no longer ranked number 1 through 213, 187, 195, whatever the number of the graduating class is per year.
I can't hear. I'm having trouble hearing a lot of what's going on.
Okay, I'll say it louder. My recommendation
I don't know if that
is
doesn't
that
hear.
for the current junior graduating class of 2019, that we no longer follow class rank as a way of ranking students academically at Newburyport High School, and that continues on for subsequent graduating classes.
So no longer individually ranked students.
Correct.
That's the proposal. Could we now have
We need a motion to approve the recommendation from Mike Parent.
So moved.
do we need any further discussion?
Yeah, I need clarification. Does that, the way you worded it, I can't tell if you're actually keeping the deciles or not.
I'm not.
So we're doing away with class rank?
Correct.
Can we simplify it then?
Yes, that's what we
That's
just
what we
did
just
with
did.
the new.
We just did.
Okay, it didn't sound simple to
Did
me.
not mention the word
That's why I asked the
decile
question.
in the
I understand that, but we
statement.
talked about doing away with individually ranking students. We're talking about doing away with ranking students.
We're talking about doing away with ranking students.
Okay, perfect.
That's all we
Still
wanted
needs
to
a
say.
second.
I second that.
Any further discussion needed?
I would just add that
Mr. Menon?
Yes, sorry. I should have raised my hand. I appreciate, Mike, that you did the work on this and that you brought it to us after the students identified it as an issue. I appreciate your recommendation, and I would support your recommendation.
I just want to make it clear that Mike Parent is only the messenger here, that the vast majority of work was done by the students themselves. The working with a staff member on the survey, the collecting of the data, the coming up with the report, presenting it to the school committee. I really want it to be a student-driven initiative, and that's, in my view, it's pretty clear that it was, and it, I believe, continues to be, even though those students have graduated, that they've left a legacy for other students to pick up on.
As I mentioned previously, I hope that there's some way that we can find some of these students and let them know that we've taken this vote.
Don't worry.
Oh, I know.
They will know.
The word will get out. All those in
that.
favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
Fantastic.
And it makes me feel really proud that we had a group of students that came to us.
Absolutely.
And we are now, I know it's a couple of months later, but we're responding positively to that. So I thank you for that, and I thank you for supporting. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike.
Thank you.
Thanks. Next is a policy, substance abuse prevention and policy, Mr. Decanter,
Yes.
being the chair of that committee.
Yeah. The work on this policy is still in progress. At this point in time, we have posted the items that need to be posted on our website to keep the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education at bay. And they know that we are continuing to work on fine-tuning these policies. So at this point, no vote is required, and we will bring the policy to your approval probably at the next meeting or the meeting after.
Thank you. Next up on our agenda is a discussion on the process. As you know, we are entering into a superintendent search process because the current superintendent will be leaving us at the end of this year. So I'm going to turn this part of the discussion over to Mayor Holliday, who has begun working on this.
Thank you, Cheryl. Obviously, we need to proceed with our hiring a consultant to assist us in the search process for an executive search for a new superintendent. The first step was to put out a press release asking for anyone who is interested in serving on the search committee to send to City Hall, my attention, a letter of intent, or email is fine, or a CV or resume in terms of why you would want to serve on the search committee. We have had upwards to 15, if not more, people on a search committee. Again, I think the goal is to have a sufficient broad base of representation from the schools, from the community, from teachers, principals, school committee, city councilor, et cetera. So I've already received probably 4 or 5 letters and resumes, and we'll certainly share that information with you as this process moves forward. But just asking people again, they have till October 20th to send information to my attention if you are interested in serving on the search committee. Next is the selection of a consultant. I've had the opportunity to work with 2 separate groups that we have used in the past, and that would be the Mass Association of School Superintendents Executive Search Group, and then last time we used New England School Development Council, NESDEC, as our consultant team. And I know that I am strongly recommending that we go back to NESDEC. I've already reached out to them just to get scope from them. It's in, obviously draft form. No decisions are being made, obviously, without this body's approval. And with the change in procurement laws for services, we do not have to issue a formal RFP for anything that is under $50,000. We just need quotes. So I've you have the proposal before you from NESDEC, that their draft scope of services here. We had Art Betancourt and Carolyn Burke. Carolyn worked very closely with our team last time and did I think a very straightforward job. There's a timeline there also in terms of the process, and their draft proposal is here also in terms of their cost proposal. So I reached out to asking for a written quote from Masco, and I also reached out to the Future Management Services, which is another organization that does superintendent searches, and asked them for a quote also. It's obviously up to this committee in terms of how we want to proceed at this juncture.
Yes, having been involved in a couple of searches now myself, I agree that the services that we received, particularly the willingness and ability to listen to us and to our community members, were far superior from NASDAQ than they were from the mask team that we had working on the search before. So I would very strongly support the proposal that you're bringing to hire NASDAQ on as our consultant for our superintendent search.
Thank you, Nick.
Yeah, I would agree. I think several things had impressed me about NASDAQ in our work with them. One was that they genuinely did listen. They did meetings with the community to get feedback from the community. I think that they listened to us about strategically moving our established need out into a very, very broad national community of people, and I thought that was extraordinarily helpful. And I also did not get the sense from them that they sort of had a cast of usual suspects that they were providing us resumes for. I know that's very crass to say, but I felt like that they were willing to reach as broadly as we wanted them to reach to generate candidates. So I feel I'm really fine with NASDAQ. I would prefer to talk about what I thought they brought to the experience as opposed to why I wasn't so happy with the experience working with the other organization. But I thought that they served our community really well, and I am very comfortable with them.
I guess I have to raise my hand because you're in charge now. And I have to say that, you know, as you all know, I did chair that last search, and I think the two people, Art and Caroline, for me, were there at the other end of a phone call anytime I had a call to make. I think they worked really hard for us to understand running community focus groups, what our timeline should look like. As Bruce said, I think they have a broad stroke when they think about candidates, in that they reach way far and beyond Massachusetts, sometimes internationally. They provided us with a wonderful brochure about Newburyport and its needs that we were able to use and handle. I think they are in the game. I think if you look at some of the superintendent searches they have successfully completed since our time with them. Last time we worked with them was 5 years ago, and they've done a lot of work. We're always asked, why do you need an outside consultant to help you? Why can't you just do this yourself? They have the resources that we don't have, and they can provide us with information that we don't have. This is their livelihood. This is their, not game, if you will, but I had a lot of faith in them, and when I first saw this proposal and I saw that it was the same two representatives, I know what they can deliver, and I feel real comfortable with them, so I don't have a question about NASDAQ, other than I keep calling them NEASC.
That's the other group.
No.
If I could just add a point. I'm aware, and maybe the community is aware, that there are other nearby districts that are also going to be involved in looking for superintendents. Haverhill and North Andover are going to be looking for new superintendents as well. I'm genuinely feeling a sense of urgency after our experience the last time of being sort of behind the curve, of getting out ahead of it this time. So I'm very encouraged that the mayor is beginning to discuss pulling together a committee. I would love to see that committee together as quickly as possible. I would love to see us make a decision about who we're going to work with as quickly as possible, and that we get a head start on it. I really feel very strongly about that.
Agreed. Mr. Cole?
What was the name of the search consultant, not before NESDEC, when we hired the previous superintendent? Was it HVA?
Talking about Mr. Kerbel.
Yes, Dr. Kerbel. What was the name, what was that consultant? No one remembers.
I want to say H&R, but that's H&R Block, I guess.
So anyway, I guess, having participated in a few of these, leading one, I think there's different flavors to each. I know that when we did the MASC back in 2006, we had quite a few candidates in the pool. And I think we selected the best candidate head and shoulders above the rest. The next search consultant that we don't seem to have the name of, or remember the name of, seem to have a stable of candidates, seem to have, I think, certain candidates that, they basically paraded before us. And then the last search group, NESDEC, the pool wasn't as large as the one that MASC produced, but they seemed to work well with the search committee in determining who semifinalists would be. Okay, so there seems like there's three different results, at least the last three searches we've done. I think one of the key things that we're going to need here, and again, I'm not trying to put the cart before the horse here, but I think we've done a lot of work with our strategic plan. We're going to really need a leader who's going to come in here and try to keep it going. And, that's going to really necessitate, again, some of the qualities you mentioned earlier about a search consultant who's going to listen, who's familiar with what we'd like. So I guess in those circumstances, it sounds like NESDEC would be the search consultant. But I'm just hesitant a little bit because there's no guarantee. There's no guarantee. And I've looked at some of the searches that MASC has been involved with, similar to NESDEC, and some of the school districts involved with both have made some impressive hires. So I'm not. Again, I think it comes down to what we want as a district. We've talked a lot about Clipper values as the basis of our strategic plan. I think we're going to need someone who understands that. And so I guess whatever search consultant can help tailor that, focus that. I mean, we've spent a lot of time, and I would just hate to stop working on that. So that's my largest concern, is picking out a search consultant who's going to be attentive to that and really help us ensure that we get the right candidate. Because if we take a look at the finalists we had the last time around, semifinalists and finalists, they're quite different. And I think we were fortunate that we were able to Susan was able to come here and basically replicate here what she did in Durham, Connecticut. She also got a lot of support from us in doing that too. We supported a consultant to help with the strategic plan. So I just don't want to see all those resources go to waste at this point, all the time, the energy. And I think we really need to get a person who's going to continue moving us forward.
And I also believe that there's a profile that we, as a school committee, develop, in one of those initial meetings with them. Right. So, and I believe that that's absolutely critical, you're right. But the other piece that, and I'm sure all the other companies do this too, is they warranty their work. So that in the end, if we are not satisfied with the finalists that are put before us, they have to redo the search at no cost to us. So I like the fact that there's that warranty there. And, the fact that they can hit the ground running because they know our community, they know, what we've, it wouldn't take them long to get caught up in terms of what's accomplished in the last 5 years since, Susan has been here. just to update the profile of Newburyport. We have people already willing to step up. We could have this process, up and running in a month, really. If we could move forward on this. I think it's always good to use people that and you've worked well with. I thought Carolyn and Art were fabulous to work with.
Yeah, I just wanted to reinforce what Steve said. When we were looking and hired Susan, I think we were pretty clear that among the things that ranked very high for us was somebody who had managed building projects and been involved with them, and somebody who had special ed expertise or sensitivity. And we were able to find that with Susan. We don't have any real major building projects right now, and I think that we're going to be looking for a superintendent to bring something different than those basic skills. And I agree with you, the strategic plan is absolutely a great reflection of where we want to go, and it lays out a vision. And now we need to be looking through that vision to find the person that's going to match up with that. And so I agree with you completely.
And recall, we've had other interviews where we've asked about existing strategic plans, and they just said no. So I think that this is really critical, given the amount of work and how this is integrated from an administration to a classroom and all across the board in terms of our superintendent, district, and school goals, that it's absolutely critical that someone can come in and demonstrate that they're willing to pick up where we left off on this plan, going into year 3, and be able to implement it also. I think it's a really important point for us.
I think the consultants, too, are going to have a very good understanding about what we're looking for, and building that profile and understanding what our strategic plan is.
And they did, and considering we started in March, which
We
is,
were very
we
late.
were very late last time, and considering, how we ended up on the other end, but because knowing that this was warranted and we could potentially say no and start over, everything lined up for us, and I'm hoping that the same will happen this time.
But you're right, we are looking for a very different candidate than we were 5 years ago. And we have specific needs this time, and that was the other thing I liked about, I'm going to say the wrong name, NESDEC, is that they do come to us and present as a school committee. If we want, they will come to us. That's the first thing on their timeline, is to do the school committee orientation. And that would be the time for me to make it very clear that there are certain things we're looking for. Here's where we were 5 years ago as a district, and here's where we are now, and we want to move forward from where we are now, because we're all committed to the strategic plan, the core values, the Clipper values. I don't think any of us want to see that go by the wayside, no matter what.
No.
So I think that's part of our responsibility as well.
So, just where we are we willing to move forward on this, and could I have a motion then?
Motion to move.
That we approach NESDEC to be our consultant in our superintendent search.
Second.
Discussion?
Further discussion?
Thanks for the initial work.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay.
Is that NESDEC?
Yes, New England School Development Council.
Sean, you voted twice already, huh?
Yes.
Thank you very much. I will reach out to NESDEC, and I will see if I can get them on our agenda for our next meeting, just to come and do a little presentation, and also that everyone's aware, I believe, that
they aren't.
That I asked Cheryl to, she's not getting away from us. She's chairing this committee.
Somebody said to me, should I do condolences or congratulations? I said, absolutely congratulations. I'd be delighted if all of you feel that I can do the job. But I know, as I've said to you over the years, I need your support. This is not something that I can certainly do by myself, and it's very important for me that we work as a team, as we always have, to continue that team approach, because it's a good one, and we're all in a
Thank
good
you. I
place, I
so
think.
appreciate the fact that you are willing to pick up being the chair. So,
Can't retire yet.
Stuck.
There's no escaping.
So, what about members of the school committee interest on
Yes.
the team?
Bruce has expressed an interest, and certainly we'll need him to follow the same procedure in terms of a letter and resume. And certainly if there's other members of the school committee who might be interested in being on the search committee, please do the same. And then we'll have a conversation about who we would like to select to represent the school committee on the search committee.
How many people typically you said serve?
Like 12 to
12 to
15.
15.
But again, sometimes it's hard to make that choice between one or two people, and you put the principal, and you put this, and you want that parent. And so we just, have to, I think what's most important is that we have broad representation across the community.
And I've shared with Donna, and she shared with me that I would like to have one of our current administrators be on the team, as well as I would like 2 teachers, one from upper level and one from perhaps the elementary level. I think it's important to involve
A member of the leadership team.
Right.
As well as teachers.
Right.
Absolutely.
That's right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So thank you.
Mr. Cole.
And I believe you can't have any more than 3 school committee members on it. You can't have a quorum.
Right. And I think that probably one would be sufficient with Cheryl, just so that we can ensure that we have broad representation. But again, we can have further conversation about that as we start looking at the people who are submitting resumes and letters of interest. So thank you very much for your support on this. And as I said, I'll try to get NESDEC here for our next meeting to get on the agenda and just give us a little, overview of, how they're going to start and where we are. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Next on the agenda was the superintendent was going to update us on school councils. Obviously, that's not going to happen at this point. So I'd like to move right into the assistant superintendent's report. Angela?
Sure. I just wanted to give you a little update about our first release day, which happened last Friday. And
A Friday, too.
It was a Friday, yes. And there was a lot of great work happening in the district. I'm just going to give you just a brief picture of the professional development going on. At the Bresnahan, we had the opportunity to do initial STEM scope training with our kindergarten through 2 teachers who are piloting that program this year. Our 3rd grade teachers were working on writing during that period of time. We were working on some assistive technology in special education. We had some district teams running that were working on STEM district-wide, on performing arts, on visual arts, and a health and wellness team working pre-K through 8 on that day, all who had incredible ideas and enthusiasm and great energy about where they wanted to see some of that vertical work go this year. RIAs did an introduction into positive behavior intervention and supports, PBIS, and so that gives you a little overview of district and the Bresnahan. At the Mullen School, they started their ALICE training for safety in the school. So that got rolled out to the entire staff. They also spent some time discussing ways that they might be able to use engaging websites with the students. So they did some work around virtual field trips, mystery Skype, educational TED resources. So that was a lot of fun. And then they also shared an excellent resource called Headspace to support their work around mindfulness in the classroom. So that was their day. The middle school is rolling out design thinking. this year in the work that they're doing with their PLCs. And step one of that process is using empathy and understanding learning. And they did some very interesting work with D-School, which is, they're the ones who, through Stanford University, they started the idea of design thinking. That's where the model originated. And they have online training modules around it through their D-School that they started in a PLC format with the entire middle school staff this last Friday. So they're incorporating some John Hattie's research into this around learning. And so they're in the first couple steps of this. The next time they'll move into stage 3, which are really about building goals for your PLCs. But the base of this was really to ask teachers to think differently about everything, to let go of any assumptions about teaching and learning, and step into it with fresh eyes. It's very hard, but kind of an exciting process. So they got that off the ground, and they're very excited about the work that they're going to be doing there this year. And then lastly, our high school developed their goals for the year and outlined the supports that would be needed for the variety of PLCs that the teachers are going to be working in. And the teachers signed up for their PLCs on this first day. There are 15 different PLCs that will be working at the high school. And I can just review some of those topics for you. There's a science curriculum alignment, there's add/drop and graduation requirements, there's reading and writing workshops across the disciplines, there's some sub-separate program development, there's health and wellness curriculum revisions, there's IA professional development, there's guidance counselor revamping, there's math literacy, business internships and community connections, contemporary discourse and high school English curriculum, student-led IEPs, vertical alignment of Spanish, now that we've been able to put Spanish back in at the middle school, taking a look at Spanish curriculum, developing communicative activities within the world language class, grade 10 history curriculum revision, grade 11 history curriculum revision, and developing a staff directory and how they're going to communicate that. So those are the PLCs that have been chosen for the high school. Everybody had an opportunity to sign up for those PLCs and start their goal setting for the work they'd be doing this year.
I just would like you to reiterate that these are teacher choices.
Yes.
And could you talk a little bit about that? Because we talk about teacher voice, and this isn't top down. So could you just talk about that to remind us for a moment?
The professional learning community work is all about teacher choices, but I think there's strong teacher voice in all of the things that we talked about today. Some of the professional development was curriculum driven by what our needs are and what our data tells us that we need to focus on. So that's not so much about teacher choice to work on that very thing that day, but teacher's voice in how we develop that curriculum moving forward to meet the students' needs. So yes, I mean, there was, very exciting conversations. For example, I had the opportunity to work with the district groups, the vertical groups that were working on that day. And our performing arts group was really sitting and talking about the talents of each member of our performing arts teaching team. And so that was looking at who those teachers are from pre-K through 12, what we want for our students by the time they leave our school district as a graduating senior, and discussing how they maximize each of their talents so that they can be utilized at whatever level they're needed at any given time, so that we offer the very best we can for the students. So as we think about making this idea of reimagining teaching and learning actionable in the schools. The work that we did last year in the professional learning communities, kind of brainstorming and researching and thinking about possibilities, I am hearing in the conversation about the work that teachers want to do moving forward. So it's very exciting, and the energy is high, and teachers are motivated, and it's very exciting.
And I think it's important to say to the public, too, this is what is happening during these halftime release days.
Absolutely.
And, you know, that it is a tremendous learning opportunity for our teachers, which then transfers to learning for our students. And without these half days, we wouldn't be able to accomplish as much as we are within our curriculum. So, you know, it's a subject that comes up every time we do our calendar, but as long as I've been here, I've been a total proponent of the half days.
Right.
You didn't see any less than effortful workshops? When we talked about moving to Friday, there was that fatigue that we talked about.
We didn't see that this first time around, certainly. We're keeping data, as we said we would this year, to see how it goes for Friday. So, of course, the first thing we did was we collected our attendance data for teachers and students, and our student attendance data was our absenteeism was a little higher than what it typically is on a release day, but we'll see if that continues or if that's because it was the first time or whatever. But we're just going to see how it goes.
But I'm reminding us that that's something that we put into place as well, so that we will have some data at the end of this to determine whether Fridays is going to work or not going to work.
Right.
So,
Can we look at a comparison for after the next Friday one, just to see?
Yeah,
Okay,
sure we
great,
can.
Great.
Sure.
and the other concern was the businesses downtown, so I would like to, to keep kind of an eye on that. So just
Isn't there no phone calls into City Hall on the voicemail this morning or emails?
Good. Okay, let's move on. We're almost done. I would like to, this is not on the agenda, so if you could please excuse me, but the New England Association of School Committees is having their annual conference on, beginning on Wednesday, November 1st, and running through Saturday. We usually send a representative to that, and Mr. Cole has volunteered to be our representative to that conference this year. I'm going to try.
When is that? That is
November
1st to the
1st.
4th, Wednesday to Saturday.
Good.
Okay. Because I want to vote, so if we want to discuss, I would like to move along. It's getting late. I would like to combine the first notice and the second notice of this reading due to the time constraints. In order for your school committee to have a vote at the annual business meeting of the Massachusetts Association of School Committees, it is necessary that an official delegate be designated in pursuant of Article 9, Section 6 of the bylaws. And it says as follows. I'm not going to read all that. We've been here, done that before. So could I hear a motion and a second so we can discuss?
So moved. That we appoint Mr. Cole, our representative to our delegate to the Massachusetts Association of School Committees annual meeting.
Second. Discussion? Mr.
The
Bennett?
only thing I would ask, Steve, and we have done this traditionally, is to go over, get a brief presentation on the resolutions and taking votes on them so Steve can carry those.
Sure.
If you wouldn't mind doing that, I think it'd be great.
I'll get them out. I mean, everyone should have got a book of them?
I think I
didn't
got
get them.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
And it might be because I've moved.
I got a book, so, I mean, I can...
I think it's because I moved.
Yeah.
Sean, there are usually 10 resolutions that school committees from around the state propose. And then we have, or will, as soon as we finish this, duly elect Mr. Cole to represent us and to vote for us.
What I'll do is I'll send you the website, and you can look at it.
That would be good. I got it too.
Yeah.
So this is all New England?
Yes.
Okay.
Massachusetts.
No, just Massachusetts.
just Massachusetts.
Okay.
Okay.
Mass Association of School Committees and Mass Association of School Superintendents Joint Conference.
Okay.
So you run into a lot of superintendent candidates down there, too.
Oh, yeah. And sometimes they run into you.
Yeah.
Put a sign on.
No.
I'm kidding. Did we second that? I'm sorry.
Yes,
We're
we
in
did.
discussion.
Yeah.
Any further discussion? All those in favor of
Aye.
electing the esteemed Mr. Cole?
Thank you, Steve.
Thank you.
Thanks.
No one's opposed, I assume.
No.
Thank you. Subcommittee reports, I'm going to go through this real quickly. Joint Ed met tonight. We talked about the beginnings of the superintendent search committee in that they asked us how it was conducted in the past, what we were looking for this time, and we filled them in. We did say that we were going to have a presentation this evening from the mayor, so we didn't get into all the specifics of that. The second thing we discussed was kind of a combination of later start times and the notion of entertaining 990 at the middle school. And those were our two topics. Mr. Menon and Mr.
Yeah, no,
Hutt were there.
we clarified the process for 990 right now, that conversation is taking place at the middle school, and that once they have had that conversation and get it back to us, we will then discuss it.
Finance, we pretty much covered, or Mr. Cole, is there something you would like to add?
The only other thing we did at the September 20th, we did have a transfer. We transferred some money from $150 from guidance, supplies, and materials to the cost of Naviance. That was for the high school. And then at the Bresnahan School, there was a transfer from literacy salaries to current contract services, current conferences and workshops, and strategic plan. Some of this was to complement professional development for administrators, and also so that teachers or actually innovative practice for teachers to observe in other school districts as related to the strategic plan. So trying to allow some funds so that they can go out and see what's going on.
Very good.
Policy,
We have not met since last meeting.
CIE,
We met last, 2 weeks ago.
curriculum instruction and expectations, Mrs. Kennedy, I heard that all the way over here. Yes.
We had sort of an opening discussion about what we wanted to focus on over the course of the year. I thought that was really productive. We initially framed that discussion as a series of questions, and then began to talk about that. One of the questions we had and we began discussion about was what we were doing to reinvent teaching and learning. How was that manifesting itself? And we had, I think, a really good discussion about how we were sort of shifting from a model of curriculum being top-down to more building-based conversations, and then moving the substance of those conversations sort of upwards. And I think that was really helpful. We, as part of sort of new ways of doing some of this stuff, Angela presented to us a really interesting idea that they have over at the Bresnahan now about social and emotional wellness zones during recess once a week, where they almost have setups where kids can pick and choose what kind of activities they want to do in research at recess. That we had also done some training with lunchroom monitors and other staff, and that had gone very well. Both the training for that had gone well, and it really gave people a sense of skills that they could use, and a sense of feeling like they're respected as professionals. We also we talked about a really wonderful phrase that Angela sort of gave us, was that the focus of professional development really is sort of giving teachers new ways to think about things that they're doing. That has sort of been one of the underlying themes. And that seems to be really something that is making people feel really good about what's going on. The next meeting, we're going to talk about AP placement of kids, how that is determined. We're going to update on later start. We're going to begin sort of a conversation that is following along with the conversation the district is having about homework and homework policies. And I think we all felt it was a really useful conversation. Yeah.
Great.
And we meet again on the 23rd.
Superintendent's Evaluation Committee. We are looking into whether the state requires us to evaluate our superintendent for state records, even though she is retiring at the end of the year. So we were last under the impression we didn't have to do that this year. It may not be part of our decision-making. So we'll get back to you as to what we need to do for that. And recall that the state just requires the indicators, not all the... So I'll keep you up on that. Mr. Menon, I understand you attended a CREST meeting?
I did attend a CREST meeting. There are some very interesting things happening with CREST.
Can you talk, can you
Yeah.
break that apart, what is CREST for Mr.
Yeah, I was afraid you would ask me that.
Mr. Cole,
Mr.
you
Cole.
know, you have to know. You were on it for 2
Yeah,
years.
I know. They changed the letter, the abbreviation around.
Essentially, it's
Collaborative, I believe Collaborative for Regional Education Services.
Today.
No. I don't know what
know.
the T is.
Yeah.
We'll get back to you on that, Mr. Reardon.
Yeah.
I got most of it. That's pretty good.
Well, we don't even know if that, but anyway, it's a collaborative.
Regional Education Services, I'm not sure what the T is, I'm sorry.
Over, as Steve had been reporting out earlier, they're financially quite stable. They've got an extraordinarily competent executive director who really seems to be doing some really good things. And they're currently looking now at they may be doing a sale of a very large building that they have in downtown Methuen, and are looking at setting up in a new site that is going to probably enable them to expand their services. One of the subjects that did come up, I thought, that was very interesting, is that at the state level now there is some talk about a couple of new charter schools opening up in this region, one of which would focus on kids with special needs.
Oh.
And whether or not, what kind of an impact that would have on the CREST services. So.
Interesting. Well, thank you for your representation there. Last NEF.
NEF is busy raising money. Thanks to everybody who showed up at the dedication for the Institution for Savings Auditorium. Wonderful event. Absolutely fabulous technology that we've enabled the high school to have. The teachers and students gushed about how they are using it and are very excited about this. What is particularly exciting, at least to those of us on the NEF board, is that because the Institution for Savings stepped up and completed the fundraising we were doing for the high school, now all of our efforts are focused on STEM. And there are a lot of exciting things happening in that area. The next event, I believe, will be the auction in November, and I will keep you abreast about that. And again, excellent event at the high school to the dedication.
Well, it was great that the kids did the touring. You know, you could grab a student and they took you on a tour, and, you know, our mayor was up on the stage making all the different color lights flash, and, you know.
Got to see the lights go up.
Yep, it was fun. It was a multicolored spectacle.
Oh, it was great. It was great. Students were so excited.
And the only last thing, I mean, and I guess, Angela, I don't want to put you on the spot, but I understand that we're starting a school store at the high school.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know that.
Oh, you didn't know that?
No. So could you talk about that a little bit? Is that NEF?
That's actually EBC.
Oh, okay, the educate, okay. Do you want to talk about it a little bit?
Basically, it's a group of students that are coming out of the business courses that are putting their learnings into action. They have gone through and have selected appropriate clipperware, clipper items, and it's the grand opening is Wednesday,
It was on Facebook today.
20-something of October. Wednesday, the 20-something of October.
That's
whatever.
great. Some Wednesday in October.
Yeah, in the middle of the day. They're very excited. They've been working hard at getting their space set up. And
Where is the space? I know
It's
it's
going to be
at the
next
high
to the
school.
cafeteria.
It's right off the cafeteria.
Is there
So
They
near the
built a
bank?
business plan
No,
for it.
actually closer
On the other
between
side.
the cafeteria and the bathrooms.
Oh, okay.
In that corner. It was always set up to be the school store space, but since we didn't have a school store, it sort of became storage. And so now that's been de-storaged and it's now being made into a school store.
What's the goal?
The goal is twofold. One is to learn about running a business and running a business effectively, entrepreneurship, et cetera. And the other is to promote school spirit.
So you're not talking about school supplies like erasers and pencils and stuff? Okay.
Although they may put them in there, I don't know.
Well, no, I don't know if they had a clipper on it.
If they had, well, yeah, you know, it depends. And this is part of the excitement of it, is that they get to decide what
They
they're putting in there.
determine. That's great, that's great.
Bruce, did you say this was DECA?
I'm sorry?
See, and you already knew because you were on the invitation.
Yes, DECA is involved in this.
Because DECA was years ago, the same thing.
Thank you. Anything further by any of the members? Mayor?
Mayor?
Just two things real quick. One, Sean, just for the ease of getting through the rest of this term before the new school committee sits in January, just asking you to step into the vacancies on curriculum and policy.
Okay.
So that, get us through till January, and then, at that point, people may request or ask for changes or different committees, and this will give you a chance to at least to get to know two of the,
Can I just ask when those?
Yeah, policy meets on Saturday mornings, so,
Yeah, you know not what you agreed to.
no, so
Saturdays.
think about that, if that's, I don't know if you're coaching sports or
I am,
what.
but I mean, it's one.
Typically, we do it from 8 to about 10 to get out of everybody's way for the weekend. It gives us a larger block of time, which we need to cover the policy.
Is it always a certain Saturday?
And I will be, the one we had chosen for this month didn't work out for everybody, so I'll be getting back to people. But yeah, and the chair provides breakfast.
Okay. And curriculum's like the fourth Monday?
Yeah, it'll be the 23rd at 5:30.
So does that seem to work for you?
I'll make it work.
And if not,
Yeah, I mean, I'm coaching right now, but I mean, that won't be much longer than October. So I just had a question. She served on she was a representative on CPAC too?
Yes.
Should I jump in on that too? I don't know how often they meet, but I can find out, or-
CPAC hasn't met as much, Angela helped me, but it hasn't met as much this year as it did last year.
Maybe you could get an update for him on that,
Right.
Angela, in terms of where things are with that. So thank you, Sean, I appreciate that. And just finally, I just wanted to remind everybody, I think I brought it up at the last school committee meeting, but at the football game on October 20th, because when we dedicated the Stalen Field, the World War Memorial Veterans Plaza wasn't complete, and so we will be dedicating the Veterans Plaza at halftime in a short ceremony. So it would be really terrific if all the school committee members were there. If you could be there for that game, I'd appreciate it.
Tell me that again.
Do you want us there with you or there with the kids? Because I think the Mullen's doing a thing where they're bringing all the kids to that game, or might be next week. It's a Friday night game, but they want the parents there with the kids in the stands.
Okay.
So if we're
Well, I
there,
would
do you want
prefer
us?
to have the school committee members standing up in the Veterans Plaza, because we'll be at, I'll get back to you on that, because I think we're going to do the ceremony from center field, at center field, because the
50-yard line.
at the thank you.
Center field.
Center field. I was like, that's not the right term. Thank you.
It's all right, it's late.
It's late, and because you can't, if we're over on the other side, the sound will bounce and it won't work. But it would be nice for you to be standing in the 50-yard line with me.
And tell me the date again.
The 20th. North Reading game.
Sounds like fun.
Thank you.
So moved.
Second.
See, I don't even have to say it anymore, Sean, I'm supposed to say. Could I hear a motion to adjourn? And that's the best vote of the night. All those in favor?
No,
Opposed?
I think eliminating class rank.
Well,
that's a pretty
that
good
might have been
vote.
the best one.
Yeah.
That might have been the best one.
Did you just drop this board?
I did. I didn't mean
Something
to.
fell.
I just was trying to unplug and, thank you. And you have